you've been on the hot seat for a little bit. We're going to move the hot seat over to our Democrat Michael now. So apparently civil rights activists like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton have been using the protests in Ferguson over the deaths of Mike Brown to convince local residents to register to vote. This doesn't sit well with the executive director of the Missouri Republican Party, Matt Wills, and the state's GOP. When contacted by Breitbart to give an opinion on this, Wills said the following: "If that's not fanning the political flames, I don't know what is. I think it's not only disgusting, but completely inappropriate." What do you have to say about this, and the fact that Democrats are supposedly using the Michael Brown shooting to register voters and using his death to rally the black community and get more Democrats to the polls for midterms?
Well, okay, so I ask why. Why would he say something like that? So I don't know. I don't understand. Like, you get mad when African Americans take to the streets to protest, and then you get mad when they're trying to use their civil rights to protest. Like, what do you expect them to do? They want their voice to be heard, just like any one of us. We want our voice to be heard. Now, Democrats are obviously going to target African Americans just like they're targeting Latinos. They're part of the rising American electorate. They're minorities, youth, and single women. These are the groups that do not show up to the polls, and they're disproportionately misrepresented in government. So of course they're going to
But I think the problem that people like Mr. Wills have with this is using the death of a young black man to further the party's causes and try to get people out to vote. I mean, that to me, it does seem like it's kind of boring, the fact that a young black man has died and use that for their own political advantage.
I don't see it that way. I saw it as them registering voters. Like, that's what I do right now, is registering voters. I'm going to use any means necessary to register voters. But that's not the reason why he was so mad about it. The reason he's so mad about it is because minorities vote Democrat 80% or higher. That's why they don't want those people to be registered to vote. It's not because, oh, this is you're fanning. It's because they don't want them to vote. That's the issue. And that's why the Republican Party has taken a stance of voter suppression, because they don't want Democratic voters to vote. Because they know once minorities show up to the polls, once single women show up to the polls, once college students show up to the polls, we are going to be a liberal country and not one that is being.
Well, I'm happy you brought that up, because actually the statistics in the last couple of years have been showing that less people, especially less Latinos and less Latinos, have been registering as independents rather than Democrats. Yes, they're registering, they're voting for Democrats, but they're registering as independents because they've seen the failure of this Democrat-run administration, of their policies. They are using antiquated thoughts like the welfare state that has been in place since 1964 with trillions of dollars spent, hundreds of programs. It's not working, and thank God that minorities are waking up to this, because they are going to become the majority in the next couple of decades.
Yeah, it's true, but the fact is, it's in Arizona they're registering as Democrats as a majority of Arizonans, not just minorities. The majority of Arizonans register as independents.
Okay,
minorities are still voting 80%.
Going back to Democrats using this to get voters out, Carlos, correct me if I'm wrong, but the impression is that Republicans have a problem with Democrats getting people out to vote right now because they were not doing it before this incident, and if this incident hadn't happened, they would not have done this until maybe closer to the midterms. And I think the problem is all these black people are out in Ferguson rioting, protesting, and it's to a certain extent they're taking advantage of the fact that they're all congregated and trying to and knowing that all of those individuals are likely to vote Democratic. And so it's, in a sense, it's like taking advantage of a very tragic situation for their personal benefit, rather than maybe they could wait 2 or 3 weeks, wait for everything to calm down, and then go and register people to vote. But this is kind of like right in the spur of the moment. How can we use this incident to benefit us? Let's go and get our voters. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, definitely, and they've been using that same strategy. They say we care about the poor, we care about minorities, but what ends up happening is that once they get elected, once they get the power, they enact policies that make more bureaucracy and spend more of our money. We've been spending close to $1 trillion a year, according to the Cato Institute, close to $1 trillion a year with over 126 different programs targeting poverty. Yet the poverty rate has not decreased. People are in these communities, like you said, are underrepresented because we've punished them when they start working. Our welfare system is set up that when you start working, all your benefits are dropped. We need welfare reform and not just pandering and saying and promising new programs.
I agree with that, but we're going to talk about poverty again. 4%, we talked about this before, 4% is 12 million people. We're keeping 12 million people out of poverty. Like, that's good. We should be spending
It's not good.
What cost, obviously, what cost? What cost?
The cost that there's almost 70% of people in Ferguson that are African American, Black Americans, and they are still not represented in their community. They are still not engaging as citizens.
Correct.
But more importantly, they're not becoming wealthy. This country's built on wealth. This country's built on capitalism, and we're not providing that for them. What we're giving them is dependency, generation after generation. We're not keeping them out of poverty. We're keeping them in the cycle of poverty.
How do we change the fact that they don't have a voice?
Welfare reform. When you start depending less on the politicians that promise you things and more on yourself, and when you start opening up businesses, you start seeing a change in civic engagement.
Okay. So you don't think registering them to vote gives them a voice?
Definitely, but not using a tragic event to do so.
So Michael,
it's not just a tragic event, it's an event in general. I'm sorry, no, it's an event in general. It could have been a concert, and people would show up to register people to vote.
But the fact that you're comparing a tragic event where a person died to a concert shows the Democrat mentality of it's all a political opportunity. Anything that will increase our political power is good. We can change this scenario.
Michael, bottom line is, do you genuinely think the Democrats had people's best interests and trying to increase political participation at their heart, or do you think there was any element of trying to take advantage of the situation to benefit their own and improve their own chances of getting elected?
I'm not in their heads, but the way I'm looking at it is, if you are truly upset with the system right now, if you're truly feeling underrepresented in your city, where most of the elected officials are white and most of the population is African American, the way we solve that is not to loot, is not to go out and start riots, is to register to vote and show up in the polls in November. That's how we solve the issue.
I'm sorry, but that's not it. You're saying that more government and more civic engagement will get us to a place. If we just all vote for our leaders, everything will be better. But I'm sorry, but we've elected leaders in Arizona. We've elected leaders at the federal level. They were using militarized weapons like the MRAP, designed to withstand landmines. These are tanks. And if it's not just happening in other communities, here in our community, Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio has lost 20 militarized rifles from a federal program that was given to them. They gave them 200 weapons, a Hummer, a tank, and 3 helicopters. These are our representatives. These are the people that vote and do it. Government is not the answer. Voting is not the answer. It's resisting that government power.